My name is Amy Pirkle, and I'll be having a show in December at the Cultural Arts Center in the Dinah Washington Gallery. And the basic theme of the show is called The Things We Shared, and it's all work about my twin sister, and it explores the twin relationship in general, but also more specifically the relationship that I have with my sister. All of the work is book art, so letterpress printed books with printmaking, and there'll be prints hanging as well on the wall. My twin sister is named Sarah Hughes, and she has a PhD in poetry. She is a writer, and we collaborate a lot for the kind of work that I do. So as a book artist, I incorporate text into my work a lot, and I brought a couple of examples of books to show today that will also be in the exhibit that has some of her writing in it, so that people can kind of see the type of work that I create when we collaborate. The first book I want to talk about is 8 Bedrooms. And growing up, my twin sister and I shared 8 different bedrooms. We moved around a lot in our family. All of the text that happens in the books that I print is all done letterpress, which is a relief printmaking technique. On the first 2-page spread, it does have all 8 of the bedrooms, and these are all photopolymer plate images that I created from drawings that I did of the bedrooms. So all the bedrooms have been drawn as closely to scale as I can get them, or as close to what they look like as I can remember. And as you can see here on the title page, it's got both of our names here because we both wrote the text for this book. This was the first bedroom we shared, the White House. We were babies. And as you can see here in the red text, that's the memory that I have from that bedroom, or a memory I have from that bedroom. And the green text is Sarah's memory from the bedroom. And that was the whole point of this book, is that I wanted to kind of focus on memory in addition to the relationship, and how we both experience the space, but maybe form different memories in that space. So the red circle each time as we go through represents where I slept in the room, and the green circle is where she slept. And I tried to place the text in a place on the page where the memory took place. So for example, here, my red text is next to this outer window because my memory is from when I was about 7 years old and the house next door burned down. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and looking out of this window and seeing the entire thing was just flame. So that's why I placed the memory there. This was actually a fun project to collaborate on. Because we got to just spend a couple of days reliving a lot of our history together and talking about the different rooms that we shared through time. So one of the last 2-page spreads that we have is a dorm room that we shared our freshman year in college, and that explains why the circles are overlapping. I didn't want anyone to think that we actually shared a bed that closely, but I was on the top bunk and she was on the bottom bunk for that particular house. And then I went through, to get all the measurements. I kind of looked at standard window sizes for like what would a double window size be, what would a single window size be, what's a typical size for a twin bed or a double bed. And I tried to keep all those sizes consistent throughout the book, so each of the blueprints would match up to scale. And then I also had to try and remember in my mind about how big each bedroom was. This is called Hands, even though it doesn't have the title on the cover. The poem inside, there's, as you can see, as we flip through the text, there's a poem that's going line by line through the book, and it's a poem that my sister wrote called Hands. And the first line is, "Our hands are matching origami kites." So I've got these pop-up kites here that I printed, and I printed the black outline. I carved a lino block to print the black outline, and then I came back in with stenciling to do the pochoir technique on top. And then I added the pop-up feature so that it can flatten down but also stand up in the book. And the idea behind this poem, it's kind of exploring something that we share, which is this frustration that can happen as artists as to, is what we're doing really important? Because she's a writer and I'm a book artist. And we wonder sometimes, we question ourselves, question the choices that we've made in our lives. So as we go through, the 2 kites obviously represent my sister and me. And we start off very distinct, popping up from the page a full color, large, in a sky just by themselves. But then as you go through the book, the kites get a little bit smaller. It's still a separate element that's been printed and pasted in place, but you can see the introduction of other kites kind of coming in. And then on the next 2-page spread, the kites are actually printed directly on the page. The color's been flattened a lot. They're still smaller. And then you get to the last 2-page spread, and our kites kind of fade into the background, and you can't really see where our kites are compared to some of the other kites. I mean, you can pick them out because of the shape, but they look very much the same as some of the other kites. And then on the back of this, because this is accordion binding, it has 2 reeds, we've just got the kites starting to disappear even more. And on this page, my kite has disappeared and hers is still in place. But by the time you get to this page, which has the colophon, both of our kites are gone. And then we have the final kind of sunset. A lot of planning goes into any kind of book. It's a series of prints. In this particular structure, the accordion, you can work flat and then fold the pieces together to create folios in the book. And the same with the drum leaf binding that I just showed you as well. You can print on just one side. You don't have to worry about registering things on the opposite side. I start with doing a lot of sketches and a lot of preliminary bindings just to figure out what the whole thing's going to look like. I usually do mock-ups in a few different sizes to figure out what size I like the best. And then I'll start, and I kind of sketch out imagery on the mock-ups and start planning the placement of the text. Usually I print, almost exclusively I print the imagery first and then respond to the imagery with the text, because the text is usually a smaller element on the page. But I do know that some people do the opposite, where they'll print the text first and then respond to the text with the imagery. But since imagery is such a major component of my work, and the imagery usually takes up the whole space, then I need to figure out where the type can go after the imagery has already been placed. I have a bindery at my home. I also have a press in my home, so I'm able to do a lot of work just on a Saturday morning in my pajamas in my house, which is kind of convenient.